A judge ruled today Jefferson County can go ahead and make the changes it wants to Cooper Green Hospital without any interference from the city of Birmingham. There are children in Birmingham right now who are being forced into prostitution, even sex slavery.
If that old saying is true, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, well, so is the road to a tax loophole, at least the one that we found, that's costing you billions of dollars a year.
He has already picked up Wisconsin and then Iowa as part of that Midwestern firewall. We're Governor Romney to pick up all three of these states. Then President Obama retreats back here. It could happen to you. That's the message from Natalie Holloway's mom, Beth.
Happy to be joined now by the governor of our great state. Governor Robert Bentley has made the trip down in Miami. Governor, give us a score prediction tonight. What are you expecting?
Just thought with your Ed McMahon laugh, I might give you.
You're correct, sir. Yes.
According to witnesses, those three people inside, a man, a woman, and a small child, are dead. Those robbery suspects, we understand, are still on the loose. Again, this is all breaking, all very preliminary. He actually walked into the front door of the school right there, exchanged pleasantries with the front office staff. They knew him because he used to be a part-time maintenance worker here. But at some point, he made his way down here to the gym, walked in, waving around a gun. Well, Scott, as is almost always the case, there are fresh flowers here at the memorial to those 4 lives lost at 16th Street Baptist Church. And as anybody who's lived in Birmingham for any time knows, it is this sidewalk, this area along the 16th Street Church, where the civil rights movement in 1963 really took a historic and tragic turn. Right here on the side of this building.
Well, the crowd is still here. These fans not taking for granted, Rick, another title.
How'd your first national championship game go, all right?
It was not near as exciting as I thought it was going to be, but if you're a Tide fan, it was a good one.
Detectives are combing through some missing persons reports tonight, trying to figure out whose body parts were found near an Arizona canal. Oh, you know, I was in the cafeteria at college and going on my way to class and just sat there and looked up at the monitor and happened to see it. And, you know, we all know that. But having that connection like she does, it's completely different. It's cathartic for the nation, but for families like that, it's a whole different thing.
The story of Cordova's recovery to this point, well, we could tell it in this one small building. This used to be the Regions Bank branch. These were the teller windows. We saw this from the air in Chopper 6 the day after the storm.
Oh, that bank. Oh, look at those teller windows. Oh, my gosh.
Now back here on the ground, it's all been swept away, but there is one piece of this building that still remains, and that is the bank's vault. Like the city, the important part of it is still standing, but the rest, it's been cleared away.
Down, and it led to victory for me, yes!
Taking us to the gun show. Congratulations, Sheldon. That's truly something we'll hang our hats on. That one's going to the time capsule. The breaking details right now unfolded live on Fox 6 News at 5 and 6. One man turned himself in at Cooper Green Hospital. The other brought in by a swarm of armed officers at a home over in Inslee. Tonight, the family members of the victims are dealing with the loss of 3 of their loved ones. All new at 10. The father of Ryan Colwell is speaking to us at Fox 6 News. He says when he saw that wreck on the news, he feared that the young couple and his granddaughter, 10 months old, may have been involved. Sadly, he was right. Tonight, he remembers the young family and what he'll miss most about them. That interview is coming up at the top of the hour. It's a video that went viral, had all of us talking. Remember that Alabama fan accused of offensive conduct against a passed out LSU fan down in New Orleans after the national championship game? Well, today, Brian Downing pleaded guilty to 2 counts of obscenity for sexually taunting an unconscious LSU fan. Lined up for a couple of days, probably. Now dozens of chartered buses from Gulf Coast states are waiting there at the Port of Mobile to take these passengers off the ship and on to New Orleans and then to Texas, where their cars are parked, of course. Fox 6 News reporter Vanessa Rise is live for us in Mobile tonight. Vanessa, I know it's got to be agonizing. That ship now less than a mile from where you are. Those families on the shore and on the ship just want to get together. These might be the most agonizing few minutes of this trip because they're so close to home, but they cannot get off of that ship even once it stops. As we could see, they're still slowly being pushed into port there in Mobile. Are they close enough where they can yell back and forth, or are the families that close to the ship at this point, or is it too far a distance to be able to communicate? Let's go back now to the Port of Mobile, a live shot here. Some of these folks just ecstatic to be able to see dry land here for the first time in about 4 days. Hanging, looks like those may be those infamous red bags there, Beth, hanging off the side of the ship. Hopefully those are not used. Those were ones that have been used as basically toilets.
I was hoping those were maybe towels or blankets.
It sure looks like a biohazard bag to my untrained eye there. And this looks like there's a message. Yeah, these are some Arkansas fans, it appears. Even in the midst of this, SEC fandom, Woo Pig Suey, and it looks like a Sweet Home Alabama there. We didn't see any Roll Tide or War Eagles, but apparently football fandom lasts even during these this horrific experience these passengers have had. Vanessa, I know that apology is perhaps good for show, but the cruise line has a lot of other plans to try and reimburse these passengers if they ever can be made whole for this whole experience, right? Now, one thing that has not been in dispute other than how bad the conditions have been, is how good the crew has been. If you hear, a lot of the passengers we've heard from have said that the crew has been working, around the clock to make them as comfortable as possible, given these circumstances. I assume that is some comfort to the family members there waiting for these folks on the ground. And he is still up here in Ohio, which has 18 electoral votes. Again, a lot of votes to be counted in the state. It is certainly not over there, but that's a big number there. And as we said, he's still holding on to a thin lead in Florida, although that changes about every 30 seconds or so. So if either one of those states were to go to President Obama at this point, even though the race is not over, if you look at projections back here in the West where the polls have yet to close, suddenly it becomes a very late night early, if you will, to borrow an old slogan from Yogi Berra, for the folks in the Romney campaign. But again, their hopes rest right here in Florida, in North Carolina, and in Virginia. They need all three of those states at this point. They would love to have Ohio. Frankly, they still need that as well. And certainly they're looking out here at Colorado. Colorado is very close. Both campaigns spending a lot of fuel to fly back and forth from here and back to the Midwest. They need all of those states at this point to try and stay in the game. But again, right now, 157 to 153. We'll keep our eyes right here on Florida. And these two states right here are probably the next calls we might get, although it could be a very late night as well, guys.
Steve, we first broke this story for you a couple of weeks ago about that federal lawsuit filed by 9 former Birmingham Waterworks employees alleging that they were fired after they went to management with concerns about what they said was a scheme by their boss to participate in getting bogus overtime from the Waterworks Board, and then say they were fired after they told management about the scheme. Tonight, a former Waterworks employee with close knowledge of the situation is telling me what he knows for the first time in a Fox 6 News exclusive. This former Waterworks Board employee with close knowledge of the alleged overtime scheme asks to remain anonymous, so we can only show you his shadow, and we've disguised his voice. He says a supervisor at the Waterworks Board did doctor some of his employees' timesheets to give them overtime pay for hours they never actually worked, and then demanded those employees kick back part of that money in cash.
Say you work $400 worth of overtime, he'd want 250 of it. Or 200 of it.
The former employee acknowledges this went on for months, but he says none of the employees involved wanted any part of it. So why not turn the supervisor in?
When you work in a position where your boss just cusses you every day, I mean every day, he threatens your job with me, and especially in this time, a job is very hard to find. You got to do what you got to do until you find an outlet.
And the former employee says the group banded together to tell their supervisor they weren't going to take part in the alleged scheme anymore. Former employee says when the workers involved finally found another supervisor who did report what was allegedly going on to the Waterworks management, the group was called in for interviews, promised they wouldn't be fired if they told the truth, and then fired days later after police interviewed them. Now?
I know that the majority of them has not found jobs, and they are hurting for money, and it is the holiday season, and the majority of them will lose their house shortly after Christmas, if not before. And it's hard to explain to your children why you're losing your house and you can't afford Christmas when you was trying to do the right thing.
The supervisor accused in this alleged scheme no longer works for the Waterworks Board. We did ask them for a reaction to our story today, and Assistant General Manager Daryl Jones gave us this following statement. He said, quote, "Our policy is clear, and our board will always act in the best interest of the company and in the best interest of our many honest employees." That is from General Manager Daryl Jones, who also said Birmingham Waterworks has taken appropriate personnel actions against those former employees that violated Birmingham Waterworks Board policy. That's the reaction from the Waterworks Board tonight. They have not filed their formal response to this federal lawsuit in court yet.